I should probably introduce myself since we're not together today. My name's Philip Morrow. I've been with MLC CAD Systems just over 7 years, but I'm based in Austin, Texas, South Austin, where we have our main corporate office here. And this is where I went to college for mechanical engineering. It's where I spent some time in a CNC shop with SolidWorks. It's where I spent time doing defense contracting, using SolidWorks, sheet metal and weldments, and a lot of simulation tools as well. And in the past years here at MLC, that's what I've specialized in, simulation tools, and recently some of the new 3D experience Dassault Systems products. Outside of that, I play guitar nowadays more than I shoot sporting clays. I might have to change my slide because, well, not really because of the pandemic. It's an outdoor activity, mainly because it's 105 degrees every day here in Austin. But it is a good place to shoot sporting at. San Antonio actually has a national shooting sports complex where the American skeet competitions are held every year, so it's a good place to be if you're into shotgun sports. But if you don't know MLC larger, that's my background. There's a whole team of guys with a similar background to myself here. Degreed engineers who use SolidWorks in the field, who came over to MLC and basically just went back to college for SolidWorks. And what we do is take all sorts of technical certifications, the public ones, but even more to be able to be licensed and do different things and trainings and work with this software. So we're here to help you with all this stuff, from tech support to training to educational stuff like today. MLC's actually been doing this for 38, 39 years. That's every single release of SolidWorks and more. And I say and more because MLC's not just here to sell SolidWorks, not at all, or train and support it. The idea here is to make engineering companies more efficient, get stuff to market better, faster, and cheaper. And so that's a range of software, SolidWorks being one of them, but also services like custom and special projects, training, customizations and implementations of different softwares, like you might do with some of these high-end data management softwares, or the training that might go along with any of the different simulation products. So it's a pretty unique spot to be. It's why I've been here a while. It gives us a cool look at these different companies and how you guys are using tools. And we do a lot of research on what tools we feel are going to be the best for this type of job. So if you have questions really about any of this stuff in engineering workflow, reach out to us. That's what we're here for, is just to help you guys. Now today we're going to talk about some SolidWorks products that work together. And I think all of you guys here that I see in the list anyways, I notice a lot of people that are seasoned SolidWorks users, and you're used to this, right? Not just, hey, I update a sketch and a part, and I don't need to update anything else. Of course, all that stuff is connected. If I update the part, my drawings, my assemblies, anywhere that part used is immediately up to date. That's how all SolidWorks products work, right? So if I get into simulation, if I get into technical documentation or even electrical schematics, everything should be connected. So I make a change in one place and it spreads everywhere else, right? And we're pretty used to this if you're a SolidWorks user. It also means you can do more things that you might have to wait for process A to get done. You can start them earlier. Even simulation tasks, you can do them in parallel so that basically all the operations just get done quicker, right? It's faster, it's more efficient, and it's connected. Well, the next step up from this is managing the data efficiently as well. Because you could do all this stuff and have all these connected data, but you could have multiple files around with the, end naming on there, like final, complete, or someone's working on Rev B when they should be working on Rev C. So, why don't we integrate this as well so that we have proper data management, at the life cycle and revision control level, but just so everyone knows they're connecting to the right data at the right time. And there's actually more benefits to that when it comes to PDM. So I'm going to show some simulation today too, but I want to start with data management because it's such a big fundamental topic, and I feel like every SolidWorks user should feel the same way about data management that we feel about parametric connected data. It should just work seamlessly and never have a question of who's working on what at what time, who has access to what. So I want to start a little bit just talking about what is data management. Right, when you hear the acronyms PDM, PLM, ERP systems, talk about what its fundamental things are to me as a CAD user, and then some of the key capabilities and benefits of SolidWorks PDM, and that's the name of the product I'm talking about today, SolidWorks PDM. And then I want to show you a live look at how it works while I make some engineering changes to things. I'll look over the questions at that point, maybe summarize what I've got over, and switch into simulation. I've definitely brought a lot today, so I'll try not to go over an hour here, but no guarantees on that. So let me start with what is PDM. And to me, the most core functional need of a PDM system is when I see files being shared across a network drive at a company. If you just have a network drive that you're putting everything on and people open from there, you've already probably ran into some read-write issues and some, collaboration issues there. But what happens is when you take something off a network, that data gets broken down into packets, kind of like the Willy Wonka kid who got beamed into the TV, and then it gets reassembled on the other side. Well, what happens if the power goes out while that kid's halfway in the air? Only his legs show up in the TV. That is data corruption. It doesn't matter what type of data you're working with. That's a common way to get data corruption. Your network speeds are going to go up and down throughout the day. So we want to be able to cache files locally and have versions stored on the network drive, so we don't have such an openness to having some files suddenly go corrupt, and we've got backups and versions on either side. This also means, though, if you have a local cache, you're getting local performance. You have less bandwidth and things traveling across your network all day, so everyone's happier about the network speeds. But when you hit save, even though you're collaborating through a data management system, that file is stored locally on your computer, and you're getting local performance. That's a big deal. The thing that comes up is searching for files, right? If you have two SolidWorks files with the same name, if you've never checked out the file search order, it is fastest for your computer, not the most intuitive for your brain. It's going to go looking for a file by name, and it'll even just look in the last folders you were browsing in Windows Explorer. You could have been browsing to a network share drive, so you can find the wrong things. You don't have to worry about that with this data management system. It searches faster than a Windows search. It gets the right data at the right time. And then, of course, you get version control, rev control, so no one has to worry about ever losing work, overwriting the wrong work, or having duplicate files out there and getting the wrong one. These are all cured by SolidWorks PDM at the fundamental level. Now, I'm saying SolidWorks PDM a lot, so I think I should say there are a couple levels here that I'm also not talking about. One of them is 3D Experience SolidWorks. This is the new Dassault Systems cloud product that's been out just since July 4th. It's based on Innovia technology, and it's your plug and play. Access data from anywhere. It's in the cloud type of thing. Very easy to set up. What most people start off with is SolidWorks PDM Standard. This is included with SolidWorks Professional and Premium. This utilizes Microsoft SQL Server Express, which is free. Gives you all that fast database searching stuff, and this will manage any type of file. It doesn't need to be SolidWorks files. Anything you put in there will get managed. One level up from that comes SolidWorks PDM Professional. This is kind of the enterprise solution. If you have multiple sites, you want to replicate your server to other places, just want to work with a lot of people, this runs on the full Microsoft SQL Server and has just expanded capabilities from PDM Standard. You can always just flip a switch and get into PDM Pro. And at the very top level is actually a product called SolidWorks Manage. And this leverages PDM Professional. It sits on top of that to do project and process and item management. You can deal with Gantt charts and dashboards that show burn rates of projects and reports. It's pretty detailed. If you're into that type of thing, this high-level project management, definitely check out our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of stuff on there. So it's just youtube.com. Our user is MLC CAD Systems. Check out our Manage video Chris Souter put together. It's a great webinar. But I want to focus today on SolidWorks PDM Standard and SolidWorks PDM Professional, right? The stuff that I really feel like every SolidWorks user who's collaborating and all should set up. And there's just a few differences in between these two. I'll refer to these at the end as well. But PDM Standard is essentially the same thing, but running on SQL Express, and it's a little bit limited in certain things here. You can see in tasks, it could output PDFs, or workflow states, it could only do 10. I'll get into what each one of these are. But this is the topic of the day. So when I say SolidWorks PDM, these are the products I'm talking about. This is a tool that controls, secures, and facilitates your daily work. And it allows departments like purchasing, manufacturing, guys on the floor who need a PDF print to access all this stuff just through the Windows Explorer tools they already know and make sure they're getting the latest PDF and they're getting the right stuff at the right time. This has integration into like Microsoft Office, even AutoCAD, Inventor, Solid Edge. It manages any file type at all, and you can just use Windows Explorer. So there's a few capabilities I want to go over before I get into a live showing of this thing. And there's a key takeaway in each one of these areas, starting off with your rate of return here, your fast ROI, or just your learning curve too. If you do give this out to different users who maybe are not even in SolidWorks, well, this is built in as an extension of Windows Explorer. So it looks exactly like a folder. If you're sharing on a network drive right now, it's going to look just like that, even though really there's all this local caching and database functionality. So it's just an extension of Windows Explorer, meaning people are going to know how to use it pretty much on day one. Now, what I really like about it is the search tools. If you've ever worked in Windows Explorer and just done a Windows search, it's not very effective. It's pretty slow, and it might take you to Bing. Well, because this is built on top of SQL, the searching is immediate. This is something I got to show you today. The searching is super powerful. You can parse data through all sorts of stuff. So, you know, in Windows, I generally just browse for files. In PDM, I really take use of the powerful search capabilities. Now, a big reason to come to PDM is this revision control, and workflows are completely flexible here. So if we take even a PDF, you know, what does it take? Who needs to sign off on it to approve it? Once it gets approved, does it go into approved folder? Do PDFs automatically get sent out to the shop floor? And we might have different workflows for how we want to approve different types of files. For instance, maybe you have an engineering change order process in your company. Certain people need to sign off. Certain people need to attach Word documents along the way. This is a completely flexible and configurable workflow to manage this type of approval process and revision flows. And as I mentioned, this is totally scalable. Whether you just start off with SolidWorks PDM Standard because it came with SolidWorks Professional and Premium, and you want to jump into PDM Professional down the road, it's just like flipping a switch. Or even if you go to PDM Pro and you have multiple sites across the world, you can do server replication over there, so nobody's ever waiting on data transfers. And of course, because there are these other systems, maybe you have a legacy PDM system, you have an ERP system, a CRM system out there, we can tie into these things, and that's part of the implementation and customization that comes with this stuff. So not only could we kick out the information and share it to others, with PDM, we can build hooks to pull in from existing systems and really help with that whole migration process too, if you just want to bring everything over into PDM from some legacy system. Of course, along the way, one of the great reasons that this is you know, something you control and is locally installed is the granular security nature of it. At user levels, at the groups of users levels, even on folders, who can see what exists inside of them. So really, this is completely up to you. The control here could be met to any security guidelines. If you have ITAR restrictions, no problem. This is a complete control system that you set up to the security level for any user that you need to. So these are just a few of the key capabilities I wanted to point out, the ones that come to the top of the list for me. I think it would probably help everybody here if we just take a live look at SolidWorks PDM and you can really see what's going on. So I'm going to switch over to SolidWorks. Here I've got an assembly open that I want to work with, and this is something that's inside of PDM. I just open it up like a regular SolidWorks file. Right now it opened up read-only, so when I open it, it's just letting me look at it and view it, but somebody else could be working on this thing for sure. And I want to make some changes here, so I'm going to open up a part. Let's take this gripper arm here. Now, I call it the gripper arm. What you're seeing here is essentially the jaws of life, but it's kind of a reverse jaws of life. This thing is used to spread parts around. Like if you have a car that's rolled over and you need to spread a space and open it up. And when I try to open a part out of it, it's actually warning me already, you're trying to make changes to a read-only document. It's even a document that I haven't yet saved in SolidWorks 2020, but it opened it up. Open up read-only lets me look at it. To actually make this change and look around, I'm going to use PDM running inside of the SolidWorks task pane. This is called the PDM CAD editor, and it tells me what files I've got open, what version it's in, what state in the workflow. It's an under editing workflow state, so you could make changes to this file. And all I need to do to take control of it is just choose checkout. When I check it out, it now says, hey, it's checked out by me. Philip's got it checked it out. It's no longer read-only, and other people are aware that I'm working on it now. Nobody else had it checked out, so it's just mine. So let's make a change. And I'm going to be fancy here. I'm going to use Instant 3D and just make a slick change here to make this a little bit thicker. That looks pretty nice. I think I'm okay with just that thickness. That's what I wanted to make. So if I check my task pane again over here to share this with others, I really just need to check it back in. But before I do that, I'm going to do something that is just a PDM functionality. I'm going to check the where used information. Now, you might have seen this stuff before, like in file references. This is kind of the backwards of file references. If I'm modifying this arm, well, I'm going to be affecting this assembly and the drawing of that assembly. It doesn't look like there's a drawing of just the arm. So I know, okay, those are the other places I'm going to need to make some changes. I can handle that. And I'm going to go ahead and just check this thing back in. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to leave a note for someone in the future. I made the webbing thicker, on this part right here, and I'll check it in. It's now transferring those changes back to the server. It's created version 3 of 3. You can still check it out and make more edits, but now anyone could come in here and say, hey, let's look at the history of this file. I can see when it was created and the notes left with that, and I can see it was checked in just now by Philip, and he wrote made webbing thicker. Okay, that's pretty interesting. In fact, I could roll back the clock and look at any of this stuff. I could say, you know what, take me back to version 1. Go get version 1 from the vault. Let me see what that looks like. And I can see the webbing was thicker. And actually on this type of part, there was an angle over here that was much smaller. It didn't have enough clearance to fully open and close those jaws. And if I'm looking down my PDM task, I get notifications that tell me, hey, the file I'm looking at is older than the latest one. You might not want to work with, some old files from way back. But I can just go, hey, go grab from the server, go grab from the vault version 2. Let's see what that looks like. And I can see here the clearance has been opened up. They got about a 120-degree angle now inside of that opening. But of course, I'm just going to hit the latest version, say grab that one from the vault, because, hey, it's most common to work with the latest version of any file, and that's what I want to be dealing with. All right, so I've checked something out. I've made a change to it. I've checked it back in. You now know how to use SolidWorks PDM. That's the end user learning that needs to happen for a SolidWorks user. I used the where used functionality there, and I noticed, hey, this is used in an assembly and a drawing, so that's what my changes are going to affect. So let's close this. I'm going to go back over to the assembly, and I can see, okay, yeah, I would have made a change here. So I'm going to go ahead and check this out too and make some more changes on it. So here, this time I'm doing it on a right click. I'm just opening up my task pane, and I can see all sorts of information. The assembly is in a state that I can edit it, so I'm going to check it out. And because I saw that drawing, I'm just going to use the dialog to go ahead and check out the drawing at the same time, because I'm going to end up needing to edit that too. And I'll just hit check out. Now I can see just this top level assembly is checked out by me. Other people could be working on these files. Many of these files are actually approved. And in that case, you wouldn't be allowed to edit them because they're already released for manufacturing. You'd need like a Rev B. And I can see one here has had a change on it. I could review that. But let's make some more changes to the top level assembly. All right, one of them is, how about this pin in here? I know there's a couple pins. I'm going to choose a different pin, maybe something that's made out of steel. So I'm just going to delete these out of here. Now, I mentioned that this is all built on a PDM database, so searching is much better than Windows. So I'm going to use the PDM search right here and just search up a new pin. This is what it looks like if you're using the CAD editor. I'm going to maximize it so it goes full screen. And I'm just going to look for anything with, I'll even just go by description, type in pin, and bam, instantly, no matter how big my database is, it just comes back. All these things had pin in the description. And you can dig really deep on pieces of data like this. For instance, let me show you data cards, because this is just kind of searching descriptions of files, by name and location. They're in my vault. But I'm going to go to cards. Now, for every file extension, every piece of data, we might have a data card which stores the useful information that we want to know about that type of file. For instance, I'm going to go down to SolidWorks parts, SLD PRTs, and this is what the data card looks like. This is also customized for me. And on a SolidWorks part, I always want to be able to see really quickly part number, description. Here's one for material. So I'm just going to add 4340 in for material. And then it parsed it down and said, oh, with pin and description and made out of 4340, which is just a part of actual material named steel, we found this one hardened tipped pin. When I click on that pin down at the bottom, I can see more information like where used information, the data card of that pin, what it's made out of, who it was created by. I've even got a preview window here, which just has e-drawings built in, right? The free viewer e-drawings. So I can roll it around, I can measure it, I can make sure, yeah, this pin seems like it's going to work. And because we're using SolidWorks, I'm just going to drag and drop this guy into the design. That's always a nice way to use SmartMates too, is drag and drop from one window to another. Could be Windows Explorer, could be SolidWorks, whatever. So I searched it up very quickly and found the pin I needed. Now I do know in this file that there is a mirror component inside of here, and I want this pin to be included in that. So I've got a pin on either side of this thing, and it's looking pretty good. It's looking good to go. That's really all I wanted to change here. I searched something up, swap it out, but I know from the where used info that there's a drawing of this that I need to change as well. And I could open the drawing just right-clicking in the tree. I could grab it from the PDM task pane, but I'm going to use File Open here because I want to point out to you guys that this is built in to Windows Explorer across the board. So even when I hit File Open, all I'm doing is I'm looking on my C drive, and I have a vault here. And it looks just like a folder. And when I open it up, here's my vault. It's got a folder structure inside of it. Here's my assembly. So I can see the data cards of it, what version it's in, who has it checked out right now, which is me. And I'm just going to grab the drawing and open that up. There's very little new things to the interface here. There's a nice task pane pullout for a SolidWorks user to get all the info that you could want inside of SolidWorks. And there's the need to know that you need to check in and check out, maybe hit where used, but pretty easy to use if you use SolidWorks. And I can see here, okay, I did break a reference because I swapped out that pin. So I'm just going to reattach this balloon so it gets a nice item number. Honestly, I should have changed an exploded view and exploded those things out, but I didn't. Yeah, that's okay. I'll leave it like this for today. I can see a part number you're on a retaining ring needs some help. Let's just say that's good for our changes right now. And I'm going to take this drawing and just check it in. I'm going to say I'm done. Let's release this file so that other people, could work on it as well. And I don't have it just reserved and checked out to me. And notice it's also checking in the assembly that I had checked out at the same time. So that's kind of convenient. I'll leave that checked on. And I'll say I swapped out a pin for steel. Right, so I got a history. Of course, it's going to know what user did it and what time of day and all that stuff, but I like to put a nice traceable history there that people could look at. So I saw a few things that changed less, but let's say I'm pretty happy with this drawing. I'm good with this drawing. I'm good with this assembly. I want to release it to manufacturing. I want PDFs to go out to the right folders. I want managers to approve it, all that good stuff. I could do that here in the task pane. But you've seen me work here a bit. I'm going to show you how to do this kind of stuff just from Windows Explorer, really. So I'm just going to close these down and pop up a regular File Explorer. Here, I'll maximize it. It's just my computer. Now my C drive is where I've got my folder for my vault. And inside of there, I got a project folder for this spreader arm, and I can see, my assembly and my drawing inside of here. I've made some other work ahead of time here as well. I actually made a new part, a new rod end. I made a drawing of that rod end. Here you can kind of see what this rod end looks like that connects things together. And along the ways too, we changed the range of motion that those could open up by increasing an angle. So really, I'm going to take all of these components here and just right-click them and say, hey, submit them for approval. I want some people to stamp these Rev A if they're new, Rev B if they're moving around, and I can leave them a comment to see here and say, please approve this work. I never make mistakes, don't even check. And when I say okay, I'm now kicking this off to be approved by a manager. I almost forgot about this. I actually have an automatic task set up for myself. Whenever I submit a drawing through the workflow, I have the design checker set to run. If you don't use a SolidWorks design checker, you ought to look at it. It can learn from a current drawing all the things about that drawing in terms of like arrowhead size and font and all the things that should be a standard. And so I can just run over it and make sure, okay, I didn't use Comic Sans somewhere on this drawing. But I'm not going to run that. I'm going to hit cancel and just let it move forward. So now all of my different files are sitting in the waiting for approval workflow state. I mentioned workflows earlier, so let me show you the simple workflow that I'm working with. It's pretty simple. Those files you saw me checking out and checking in, they're sitting in a state of this workflow called under editing. A lot of people call them WIP, work in production, I think. Under editing is what I've got, and I've got different groups of people that could do different things. So an engineer with a file in under editing can do just about anything to that file, right? Same with managers, definitely admins, but maybe somebody from the documentation group can only come and read the file contents. Now, as I submit that for approval, this little bell tells me a manager or whoever's in that approvals group is going to be automatically notified. And then when it's sitting and waiting for approval as an engineer, I could pull it back and say, oh, I didn't mean to do that yet. But that's about it. I need a manager to go pass approval, and I'll get an automatic notification on that. And then it can sit in the approved state. You know, engineers can't do too much with the file once they're approved. Perhaps another task runs to put PDFs in the right folders at that time until some manager comes around and says, hey, we need a change. And then we can go change pending, put this in under change, basically bump the rev to rev B. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of workflows you could have here. You can have them for different file types. You can have different parallel and serial workflow structures, but this is the simple one I'm working with. So I'm going to put on a different hat here. I'm going to log out. Let's do this for my task train. I'm going to log out of PDM. And then I'm going to log back in as a manager. You can do this in the task pane, or if you just click the folder in Windows Explorer, but I'm going to log back in as my manager. So just kind of changing job duties right now. And as a manager, you have a couple of choices. That waiting for approval, it could have sent him an email, just his Outlook account. Or there's actually an inbox inside of PDM. We could have sent a notification over here. So as soon as he starts up his computer and logs in, he can see anything that's waiting on action for him. Same with a simulation user, right? If they've made a design change, maybe my simulation user needs to be notified, time to run a new sim, or somebody in technical documentation needs to update the images. Just hit update in Composer and bam, tech docs are up to date. But I'm going to stick with my manager's hat. I'm going to get back into my vault. I didn't set up a notification in my inbox. Instead, I'm going to go back to that search tool. I mentioned the search tool from inside of SolidWorks. It's here in Windows Explorer as well. Looks pretty similar. And this time, instead of searching for files by name or by, cards or custom properties, or who's got it checked out right now, or is it Rev A or history, there's so much you could customize and search for. I'm going to search through the workflow. And I'm going to say, hey, just show me files that are currently waiting for approval. That's it. That's my job. And I can see, okay, there's a number of files here that are waiting for approval. And I could check these out. Like, let's check out my drawing. You see the data card of it. It was created by by Philip, my engineer, on today's date. And if I go look at the preview of these as well, I don't need to open these up inside of SolidWorks to have a look and see how they were made, what do they look like. So you can't ever blame your managers anymore for moving something around, or somebody going, hey, well, I just rebuilt it and changed. It's like, no, that's okay. They don't even need to open the actual file up. They can preview it here. And I'm going to say, as a manager, I know Philip. He really doesn't make mistakes. He's amazing. So I'm just going to go ahead and say change state. As a manager, I can say this stuff all passes approval. Except maybe I won't pass that SMG, that Composer file. Technical docs, need an update on their images, I'm sure. So I'm going to say, good work, Philip. You are my #1 employee. I'm sure a Christmas bonus is coming this year. I'm going to hit OK. And now all these are transitioning into the approved work state. I can actually see it already here, except for my spreader SMG document that I chose not to approve. So let's take another look at that drawing that I just approved. Make it a little bit larger inside of here. One thing I want to point out for you, while my notes need a little bit of adjustment on my template, I'm logged in as Brian on today's date, and I just approved this thing. It got stamped with my name, and it got stamped with Rev A. So not only does my manager not need to open my file up and possibly move around something, they can actually approve this, get dates, get custom property mapping to it just from PDM. It's called attributes at this point, basically. You can type them into the data card just like you'd put a custom property into a file, or you can do stuff like this and just approve something, and bam, it's Rev A. As a manager, I don't need to even have SolidWorks installed to do any of those actions right there. Boy, I think I just went pretty far through a workflow. I just edited parts, checked them out, changed them, edited an assembly and its drawing. I submitted all that stuff for approval. I took a look as the engineering manager and reviewed. I could even review the history. One last thing I may have wanted to do as a manager, or I don't know, just as a purchasing person, is when I'm looking at an assembly like this that's changed, is check out bill of materials info. Right, I looked at where used info and contains info, so I could see, you know, when I affect a part, does it go other places? Bill of materials are hand in hand, right? So I can see, okay, this is the current bill of materials here. I could export this to CSV. You can make bill of materials that are named and are just here, so we could add parts to it that engineering didn't think about, like, I don't know, some paint or tape or something like that. And I could compare a bill of materials. Let's compare this against the initially created one. This is what my comparison looks like. So you can see the hardened tipped pin that I added. I found it in our libraries of approved parts. I plugged it into my assembly, and I've got little green spots next to all the new information, which is completely new. We've added another component here, as well as the arm got changed, and I can see its revision has changed, the quantity has changed there, as well as a few other components that changed in design. And the old pin down here with the red flags next to it showing me that it's been removed. I really like the bill of materials comparison. I don't know where else you would do that outside of using SolidWorks PDM. So pretty powerful functionality there. So that was a quick live look at SolidWorks PDM. I hope that gives you an idea of the type of functionality that can be done here, because these are very customizable. And that's really what MLC is here to help for as well. So brief summary of what you guys just saw. PDM is a data management vaulting system that the goal of it is to help increase engineering throughput, right? To maintain that everyone is getting the right data at the right time, and as you would just assume your computer should work, right? None of this final, complete type of files, and everyone knows where things are in the workflow, and whose job it is to make a change at that point. It's obviously tightly integrated into SolidWorks, as well as a few other Microsoft Office and a few other programs, or just Windows Explorer. And it's synchronized with the releases of SolidWorks. We're here to help you guys set this stuff up, customize it to your environment, get it installed, migrate over from other systems. That's what MLC is here to help for. In fact, we can even host the entire solution for you. If you don't want to deal with setting up a server, hiring some third-party IT, installing SQL, while we'll help you guys with all that stuff in implementation, we can also take on that entire project and just do a hosted server solution for you. So that's a nice, easy way to get the job accomplished as well. I do want to point out the licensing. I talked about it a little bit earlier. SolidWorks PDM Standard is included with every seat of SolidWorks Pro or Premium. PDM Professional is the largest one. And for either one of these, you'll hear the licenses talked about with 3 different names. What I generally use is the CAD editor license. That's the one that runs inside of SolidWorks. It's the one we all here are probably going to use every day. Then there's a lighter, cheaper contributor license. Doesn't have the SolidWorks add-in, but it has the Microsoft Office integration. It's great for project managers, great for purchasing groups. All you really need to do is maybe put in Excel sheets, grab some bill of materials, save Word documents into the Vault folder. Because remember, this can manage any file type. Just put it in that folder and check it in, and it's managed. The lightest weight one is a viewer. I think these are awesome for the shop floor. You can view in Windows Explorer. You can use the free viewer that's in there based on e-drawings. And perhaps, you know, when something goes to Rev A, those PDFs automatically go into a folder that's going to be hitting the shop floor. Those people have a computer out there that they're, you know, using SolidWorks CAM on or doing some CNC programming with Mastercam, and they just want to view these PDFs. You can make sure the right people are seeing the latest PDFs and the latest data here, and there's no question. So that's a brief overview here of SolidWorks PDM Professional and PDM Standard.